So then in 2018, the retrial happened.
Yes.
And you got brought in on that.
I was brought in as lead trial counsel. That's correct.
Okay. Was there a reason why they chose you over other people?
You'd have to ask them. I mean, I've
Okay.
been in and I acquitted Michael Jackson. I freed Robert Blake when they said you can't do it. I've won a lot of federal cases, state cases, all kinds of cases, and I guess they liked my record.
There you go. Well, and then by this time, Me Too had actually escalated in terms of public appearance. Harvey Weinstein was charged with a bunch of stuff, Kevin Spacey, and so forth. So now there's really almost like a bloodlust happening in society over people that are accused for this type of thing. You take on the retrial, and it begins on April 9th, 2018.
I took over and I brought in a trial team
Mm-hmm.
with some very fine lawyers. And when I realized that the trial judge was not likely to give us a fair trial, I was, in my mind, was thinking we've got to be prepared for an appeal if things don't go right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was when the judge would not have a hearing on statute of limitations, would not dismiss this case based on the non-prosecution agreement, when he increased the number of unrelated accusatory witnesses from 1 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
it was very clear to me the judge wanted this high-profile case and wanted a conviction. And what I did was I had 4 lawyers making a constant record for appeal. They were objecting on the record. They were filing legal points and authorities on the record. They were making motions for mistrials on the record. This was the best case for appeal I had ever been part of because of that strategy, and I'm glad I had them involved. I had some really fine lawyers constantly objecting, constantly moving to dismiss the case, constantly moving for a mistrial, constantly filing points and authorities, we call it in the profession, and this was the best record for appeal I've ever had in a criminal case.
Okay, so the retrial goes underway.
Yes.
And the judge allowed 5 women to take the stand, even though they're not connected to the actual case.
They're not connected to the actual case. Some of them were talking about alleged events going back almost 30 years when you can't find forensic evidence, you can't interview witnesses, people have moved locations, people have changed. I mean, it was just an outrage. It was clearly designed to prejudice that jury against Mr. Cosby. That was the only purpose I can even imagine for doing that, is to make sure this was not a fair trial and Mr. Cosby was convicted. That's what, in my opinion, this judge wanted from day one.
Okay, and Bill Cosby, of course, does not take the stand.
He did not, which he has a right not to do.
Absolutely. Was the same police witness called on his side this time or no?
No.
No, because it just didn't
The prosecution used the deposition.
Uh-huh.
And there was a lot of discussion with the court about what they could use or not use. And we made numerous objections to that deposition being used. You can imagine what the objections were. The primary problem is that this deposition testimony was based on a non-prosecution agreement. Mm-hmm. And suddenly another DA gets elected and says, I'm not going to do what that prior DA agreed to do. And as the Pennsylvania Supreme Court emphatically said in their opinion, the office made an agreement, not the individual district attorney. He bound the office. The office had to follow that agreement. They called it a bait and switch, which is another way of saying this was a con game. Mm-hmm. Basically, he was told there was an agreement. He relied on the agreement. Now the next politically driven DA decides, well, I wasn't there entering into the agreement. That's not the way prosecution works.
Right, because it's the same department. It's the same DA.
Same office.
Same office, right.
Yes.
Exactly.